Hi everyone, David Aragona here with the May 8th edition of Horses to Watch, where we take a look back at some trips from last week, trying to find horses that had trouble in their races and might be worth betting back in the future. We're going to take a look at three races from the Belmont at the Big A meet taking place at Aqueduct this past weekend. Actually, two races from Friday, May 3rd, and one from Saturday, and all of these races that I talk about are going to be turf races. Actually, all races on the outer turf course at Aqueduct, just coincidentally, that's the way it worked out when I was trying to find some interesting trips to talk about from this past week. And we'll begin with one of those Friday replays. This was the fifth race on that May 3rd card. It's a New York bred non-winners of one other than allowance race, going 1.16 miles on the outer turf course. And we're breaking these runners from the gate, focusing on the number 6, Left 'Em Behind. And you could see he was left behind at the start of this gate. This race, sort of opposite to what his name might suggest, breaking just a little bit slowly, and that puts him towards the back of the pack. He's not some horse that was expected to be forwardly placed in this race. He typically does come from towards the back of the pack, but the real problem for Left 'Em Behind comes here when they get into the turns, because he never has any opportunity to save ground in this race. You can kind of tell watching this replay, they're not moving that quickly up front. And typically in races like this, not only do you want to have forward position when they're crawling along towards the front end, but you want to save as much ground as possible so you're not dealt that double whammy of having to go around horses while closing faster than the front runners that still have more left in the tank at the end of the race. And both of those things are working against Left 'Em Behind here, because not only was he towards the back of this very compact field as they're just meandering up the backstretch, but as this race progresses, he just gets pushed wider and wider and wider. You can see at this point here, moving down the backstretch, he's around 4 or 5 paths off the rail, moving outside of about 4 other horses heading into the far turn here. And that's just not where you want to be. Now, this race was won from off the pace. Actually, the number 2, Cable Ready, who's a long shot in this race, is going to get the job done. But you'll notice that horse saves every inch of ground, just glued to the rail for the entire race, whereas the number 6, Left 'Em Behind, he gets spun widest into the stretch here, does get over into the 3 path briefly on the turn after starting out in the 5 path, but still, that's losing a lot of ground that you otherwise are giving up to the eventual winner of this race. And he actually does some real running in the stretch. You could see he's trying on the outside, actually ultimately gets up for 4th at the end, just not missing too far to the winner of this race, only losing by a couple of lengths. And I was looking up some of the GPS data from GMAX for this race, and he actually is listed as covering 37 more feet than the winner of this race, Cable Ready. So I think that certainly makes up for the about 2 to 2.5 length margin of defeat that Left 'Em Behind lost to that winner. So Left 'Em Behind might have run one of the best races of anybody in this 5th race from last Friday at Aqueduct. And I think he's one that you definitely want to take a look at when he's back for his second start off the layoff next time, because this was his first start back off the bench. And he had run one of his better turf races towards the end of turf season last year. And I think that suggested maybe he was moving in the right direction, and this replay from last Friday certainly would confirm that notion. Let's take a look at another race from that Friday, May 3rd card. Just a couple of races later, the 7th race of the day. It's a maiden special weight event going 6 furlongs, again on the outer turf course. Let's begin this race by focusing on the number 7, Final Edition. He's a first-time starter for Wesley Ward, brown silks, blue cap. You could see him right in the middle there, and his jockey Jose Gomez is actually riding him to try to show some speed in this race, as Wesley Ward trainees often tend to do when they make their debuts. But you could see he kind of aborts that plan about a furlong into the race. He realized he's not going to get to the front end by himself, takes this horse in hand, and he just ultimately gets shuffled a little further back than I think he wanted to be. You could see right here Jose Gomez pulling back on the reins, trying to get this horse back off heels, because he got him fired up to try to show speed, and then he took a hold of him, and you could see even there he was jumping over the heels of the horse in front of him a little bit. Just a little stop and start through the early stages of this race. And right here, he's going to try to move up inside that number 2 horse, has to tap on the brakes once again, just not really able to gain momentum. And by this point in the race, you'll probably be surprised when I tell you this horse almost wins. He actually only loses this race by a nose, and it's kind of amazing to see. He really kicks into gear in the late stages. Even here, it doesn't look like he's going to get anything. He leaves the screen, but he really hits his best stride in the final furlong of this race. It's not like this was a race that fell apart. The 4 to 5 winner leads every step of the way, and here comes the number 7 Final Edition, making that big late move with those bounding strides to just miss as they came onto the wire here. This was a really impressive debut performance from this son of Uncle Mo. Now, given how visually impressive he was, I don't think this is the kind of horse that you're going to get a great price on next time, but I do get the sense that this first-time starter has quite a bit of talent. Like I said, he's by Uncle Mo. There is stamina on the dam side to potentially stretch out a little bit further. His dam is actually a full sister to a horse named Ancient Rome, who was a Group 3 runner at Kentucky Downs last year, a horse that was also a Group 1 placed overseas in Europe. So I think Final Edition might have the propensity to ultimately go some longer distances, but clearly, based on the debut race that we just showed, this might be a Wesley Ward tradie that does have some talent and should break his maiden in short order. Just not sure what kind of price we're going to get next time out on this one. To close out this edition of Horses to Watch with one more race, this is from the Belmont at the Big A Saturday card, May 4th. The 9th race of the day was one of a few stakes events they ran last Saturday. The Elusive Quality going the same distance as the race we just watched, 6 furlongs on the outer turf course. And we'll break these runners from the gate and actually start by looking at the head-on and focus on the number 4, Nothing Better. You can kind of see it there. He reared up in the starting gate, hesitated for a second, and then just left the gate after all of the other horses. And that's really detrimental to a horse like Nothing Better, who is a natural front runner. He is the horse that you expected to be on the lead in this race. And you could see how bad that start was. On the pan shot, he's not even on the screen by the time the other horses leave the starting gate. And you could see kind of the chiclets towards the bottom of the screen. He was way behind these horses early, a good 5 to 6 lengths behind the second to last horse moving down the backstretch. And while he's not able to be competitive in this race after that disastrous start, he only loses the race by 4.5 lengths, and he actually runs really well to get back in the mix and get as close as he does to the eventual winner of this race by the time they get to the finish line, not just because of that poor start, but because, like I said, he's not a horse that is accustomed to racing from off the pace. He wants to lead in his races, and typically horses like this that get discouraged by racing behind other horses early when they prefer to be out in front, they don't run their top races, and Nothing Better actually does quite a bit of running in the stretch here. You can see he's actually not even being handled that aggressively through the lane here, but he's still just running under his own power, trying to catch these horses, just showing his natural competitive spirit. And he is a really good horse, and I think he would have been pretty tough in this race if he had broken sharply, especially since the eventual winner of this race, the number 5 Dancing Buck, kind of took up the position on the front end that you would have expected Nothing Better to occupy, able to lead this field from gate to wire. And I was looking up some of the incremental fractions that are available from GMAX to just compare the race that Nothing Better ran to that of the winner, Dancing Buck. And if we just say that the first 16th of the race is a wash because Dancing Buck broke sharply and Nothing Better reared up in the gate and really didn't get into gear until he had run that first 16th of a mile. So if we just take that off, for the 5.5 furlongs after that first 16th, Nothing Better ran a full second faster for that 5.5 furlongs than the winner of this race, Dancing Buck. So once he got into gear, he was really running this day, just couldn't overcome that disastrous beginning. But I think this was nevertheless an encouraging start to Nothing Better's 2024 campaign. And I think we'll see him finish pretty close to Dancing Buck, if not in front of him, the next time they face off in a similar spot in the future. So those are all the horses to watch for this week. If you want to follow any of these runners moving forward, you can add them to your horse watch on your DRF.com account. You'll get email notifications when these horses are entered back and run back in the future. You can also go into your DRF formulator and Timeform US subscriptions in your past performances and enter notes in these horses' charts or the running lines. And those notes that you make about the trips will show up right under the horse's running line when they are entered back in the past performances for their future races. So those are all the horses to watch for this week. Hopefully you got some tips about how to watch races. Watching Horses to Watch every week. I'll be back with another edition next Wednesday.